Hello, and welcome to the Ignatius Press Podcast. My name is Rose Trabbic, and I'm the publicist here for Ignatius Press. And I am so excited to be joined today by one of our authors, Amy Welborn. Hi, Amy. How are you?
Hey, Rose. I'm great. How are you?
Good, thank you. I'm so thrilled that you're with us today. I'm sure that many of our listeners already know who you are as a writer. You are the author of a new book, Bambinelli Sunday. And I believe also you've written another book for us, Friendship with Jesus.
Right.
So we're just so excited to be talking to you today. And before we get started, I just wanted to ask you if you could just tell everybody a little bit about yourself.
Sure. As you mentioned, I am a writer. I've written probably about 30 books. I've written for the Catholic Press for years and years and years, columns, blog posts, articles, devotionals, all that kind of thing. I have 5 kids who range in age from 43 to 20 by the time this airs. And I have 2 grandchildren. My kids live kind of all over the country. I have 2 that live in New York. One in North Carolina, one in Kentucky, and one is in out west right now.
Wow.
And the grandkids live in Charlotte and North Carolina, and I'm in Birmingham, Alabama for the moment. We'll see how long I stay here. I had a conversation with somebody about that the other night. It kind of depends on what my youngest wants to do once he graduates from college. Right now, I'm providing the home base, but I don't need to have the home base here forever. So we'll see. But
right.
but
I'm kind of moved into a different stage of life. You've already raised your children.
Right.
You're a grandma. I love to talk to people like you because I have 5 kids also.
Oh, right.
But they're younger. So they're 5 to 15. So we haven't survived yet, but you've survived somehow raising 5 children and come out on the other side and now can share all of your wisdom with us, hopefully. And today we're going to be talking about building Christmas traditions in the home.
Right.
This is a topic that I love. And before we kind of dive into some traditions here, I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on why traditions are important. Like, why is it worth the effort to build traditions in the home with our children?
Because we are an incarnational faith. Christianity is incarnational. So it's about everything about our lives. Christ came into the world as a human person. And so our faith is not ethereal. It's not mental. It's not solely intellectual. It's of the earth. It's of our lives. It's in our lives. And so traditions, what they do is that they embody that in the midst of our lives. And they, of course, also tie us to the past and to the foundations of our faith. And also traditions very practically, and I think this, plays into this book, Bambinelli Sunday, traditions make the aspects of the faith come alive for children and young people. It makes it memorable. It's important that they know the words, that they have a sense of the verbal affirmations of faith, but it's the images and the smells and the things they make and touch and hear that make it live within them in a holistic way.
Right, right. And also, too, one of the things I think of, because it's like a lot of effort sometimes for particularly a mom to build traditions, but that these traditions are what is they're going to carry them their whole life. And they're going to come, maybe they might stray from their faith, but they'll remember the Advent wreath or they'll remember Bambinelli Sunday in the home, and something will draw them back about that. Because they're fun and people look forward to these traditions. So I totally agree. It's so important that we do these. And I'm excited to hear about your experiences as a mom. One of the first traditions I wanted to talk to you about was St. Nicholas Day. So that's one of, other than the first Sunday of Advent, that's usually the first feast day of Advent where, kids really get excited about this. So did you do St. Nicholas Day in the home growing up with your children?
Yeah, St. Nicholas Day I've always found pretty easy to do. Stick your shoes out and I got some candy. I know a lot of people do something more elaborate. They do gifts and all of that kind of thing. I never did that. I just do candy. It's the tradition, of course. The roots of the St. Nicholas tradition call for putting coins in the shoe outside. And so I think that's always like a cool, important thing to do, is to find your chocolate coins.
Right.
In Europe, you can find chocolate coins that are kind of wrapped in a St. Nicholas theme.
Oh, wow.
You
Okay.
can't find those in the United States, which
Mm-hmm.
is too bad. That would be a nice market for somebody to tap
Mm-hmm.
into.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we did St. Nicholas shoes, and read the St. Nicholas stories. And of course, as they get older and their shoes get bigger, uh,
They may not get
uh,
quite as much chocolate when their shoes get bigger, right?
or they expect it. I mean, it's like, yeah, it's a good thing to getting older. I may not, believe that it's St. Nicholas, but yeah, you better fill my
Yeah,
shoes. My shoes better be
exactly.
filled when I wake up. Yeah.
Right, right. Well, that is so fun. And so the Saint Nicholas shoe tradition, for if anyone listening doesn't know about it, but basically the night before Saint Nicholas feast day, the kids leave their shoes sometimes at the fireplace or at the door. And Saint Nicholas visits overnight. And traditionally, like you had mentioned, Amy, the gold chocolate coins. And also like a mandarin orange is sometimes also left out as a traditional gift. And in recent years, I think that people have gotten a lot more into St. Nicholas Day, and kind of making it more elaborate. I guess it's we're a product of our culture, I guess, and we want to do more. But I know that a lot of times, what has become popular in recent years is actually to put out books, Christmas books
Right.
particularly, but also just gift books along with the shoes. So like what we do in our families, the coins, the mandarin, and then maybe like a very tiny toy, like a bouncy ball or something very
Hmm.
simple. And then behind it, a new book. And so my kids have really grown to love that tradition. And I love it because I feel like a little bit better about all the sugar I'm giving them, that I'm also giving them a book.
Right.
So,
Right.
but and so I just wanted to talk a little bit about maybe some of our new books that we have out from Ignatius Press.
Yeah. Great ones.
That would be great for St. Nicholas Day gifts. And the number one pick for me this year is absolutely Bambinelli Sunday.
Yay.
And I love just to hear a little bit about first of all, like, how did you find out about Bambinelli Sunday? That's not something that's popular here in the United States. What inspired you to write this?
Well, I have to give due credit and full credit, because I didn't do this book by myself. And I think,
Right.
in fact, the most engaging aspect of the book I didn't do. So the idea came from Ann Engelhart. And
Okay.
Engelhart is my good friend and collaborator. We have done 4 books together, including Friendship with Jesus, as you mentioned, which is now published by Ignatius. She's a watercolor artist who lives in Long Island. And the origins of our friendship are kind of interesting, because many years ago, Pope Benedict did this audience with children who had just received their first communion in Rome. And he did a question and answer thing. And I didn't know her. She just knew me because of my writing and because of my blog and all that kind of stuff. But she said, this will be a good idea for a children's book. And she emailed me and asked if I would be willing to work with her on it. And I put her off. But then, she was, God bless her, persistent. And we worked together and we did it. And that was our first book together. And we did 2 more. And then she learned about the tradition of Bambinelli Sunday. And it started with her when one of her trips to Italy, and she went to Naples. And she actually went to the street that we focus on in the book, that is the center of the Principe figure making in Naples. And if traditionally in Europe, most crafts people of a certain craft tend to congregate in certain streets and neighborhoods. So, for example, if you go to London, there's a Paternoster Row, and that is where the rosary makers used to be,
Oh,
Paternoster.
wow.
And
Yeah.
so in Naples, there is this street, and you go there today, and it's all of the, it's centered on Principe, that is Italian nativity scene figures. And she went there, and then she learned about the tradition, which I don't know how far back it goes, but it's been happening for, about 20 years. And she saw that Pope Benedict had done this ceremony in the Vatican on the 3rd Sunday of Advent, and children brought their Bambinelli, their baby Jesus, to be blessed. And again, she thought, picture book. And and she
Great
emailed me, and this
idea.
time, of course, I didn't put her off. And she's a font of ideas. She's got great ideas for lots of picture books. And so we started working on it. And I think it's important to note, and just to give her credit, that again, that a lot of artists, for whatever reason, because it's easy and the quality is good, work on computers. Now, Anne does not. She does full scale paintings for each of these illustrations. And she's a watercolorist, which is to me amazing, because if you've ever worked with watercolors, they are, I want to say, less forgiving than oils. I mean, she might correct me, but so each of these images, begins in her studio in Long Island as a painting, and which we then, send to the publishers and create the story. So, when she came up with the idea, we knew in order to have a story, you have to have a dramatic arc.
Right.
So we came up with the idea of this little boy who is temporarily living with his grandparents, and his grandfather is a principe figure maker. And he learns how to do that and kind of works through a little bit of his sadness about his situation, and then travels to Rome, to the Vatican, for Bambinelli Sunday, and has a very nice surprise at the end.
And the story is beautiful.
Thank
I
you.
just actually read it to my children again last night, and the artwork again is just so lovely.
Yeah.
Recently on social media, Anne shared some images, actually scenes from Italy that inspired her work. And I just loved seeing them and seeing the real scenes from those Italian streets, especially like the Nona. I was obsessed with the Nona. I said, oh my gosh, if you've ever been to Italy, you see these Nonas up in these balconies everywhere. And it was just so charming to see that in the book, how she really brought that beautiful Italian imagery to life in her illustrations. So yes, this book is gorgeously illustrated. And something that Anne also did recently online, which we have on our social media at Ignatius Press, is she actually had a video on how to make your own Bambinelli.
Right.
I thought this was so clever and fun. So last night, after I reread the book to my children, I was like, and now I want to show you this really cool thing we're going to do, this new tradition we're going to start. And I showed them the video of Anne making the Bambinelli, and we ordered the clay to make it.
Good.
They're all excited. And then they were like practicing making the Bambinelli on Play-Doh, like bright red Play-Doh. And so I know that our nativity scene this year is going to be very interesting looking with all of these interesting looking babies, but they were so excited to do that. So not only is this a great book to read to your children, but I think this new tradition of making your own Bambinelli is going to be something that kids really look forward to. So just thank you for writing such a great book. And it's, always looking for good Christmas books that focus on the real meaning of Christmas, right?
Yeah. And I just want to add, then this kind of builds on what I said before about an incarnational faith, is that the prayer that we have at the end of the book, which is one of the prayers that Pope Benedict prayed at a Bambinelli Sunday blessing, emphasizes that what's going on here is that it emphasizes again that what Christmas is Christ coming into our lives, into our homes, into our lives.
Oh, I love
that. And that, so bringing the Bambinelli to be blessed. And one of the things that we've been very excited to see over the past years as we've, sort of worked with this idea, is that American parishes are starting to pick this up as something that they do. My parish, which is the Cathedral of St. Paul in Birmingham, has been doing it for several years. And we even have our multi-purpose room has for some reason has like a balcony in it. So Father comes out on the balcony and blesses the Bambinelli. And we have dozens and dozens of children. They bring, their own ones that they've made. And so the point is, we bring it to the body, as the body of Christ, we bring Jesus and we take him back into our homes where he is born and lives and grows with us and in us. So that's the point of it all.
I love that. I love that. And I love the idea of bringing it to your community, like you said, and maybe we'll do something on our social media at some point, ask people if they do that in their community to send us pictures. And that would be a really cool thing to do and to kind of grow in the United States. So, well, that is fantastic. So I know my kids, if they didn't already have Bambinelli Sunday, they would be getting it for in their St. Nicholas gifts. I also just wanted to just talk about a couple other. We have an amazing lineup this fall from
You do.
Ignatius Press Magnificat children's books. I believe we have, with Bambinelli Sunday, 9 total new books.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say a couple recommendations for different ages. I know, Amy, I sent you some of those books. Did you have a favorite of those books that I sent?
I would say, I mean, I think the Swiss Guard one is pretty cool. And
Yes, it is.
it bridges that age, you know, kind of that. I mean, my oldest grandson is 10, and it's like really good for his age because he doesn't want to really look at a baby book, but
Right,
you know, he
right.
may not want to read something in depth with like no images. And so a graphic novel kind of account of the
Yeah.
Swiss Guards is perfect for that age.
Yeah. I'll say when that box arrived in our home, I have, like I said, I have 5 kids, 2 boys right in the middle, and they're 11 and 8. And
Oh,
they both just like grabbed the Guard book and were so
yeah.
excited to read it because, you know, it has like a fighting guy on the front. So
Right.
that's like the best thing for a little boy. And
Right.
then of course the graphic novel, but the novel's meaty. I mean, it's long, and it tells about this journey of this young man who wants to become a Swiss Guard, and there's
Right.
history, and it's a very cool book, especially for those kind of hard to shop for boys. I also wanted to throw out our Seek and Find books. So younger
I have to
kids.
say my other grandson is 5, just turned 5.
Right.
And I've given him all the other ones from the series.
Oh, okay.
And
Well, thank you.
so I'm really, and he loves them. He loves them. And
They're
it's
like
something
Where's Waldo, like a Catholic version of Where's Waldo, with this finding the little characters in each page. And so those are super fun. And again, that is 5 years old, 6 years old, that kind of pre-reading, just getting into reading age. It's a perfect book for that.
Yeah.
And then the other one that I'm so excited about, which I know I sent you also, is The Lady of Guadalupe by Tommy DePaula.
Oh, yes. Beautiful.
So beautiful. And that book is one of, you know, in my years working for Ignatius Press, one of the books that we would constantly get emails about, like, are you bringing this book back into print? So many people asked. And for so long, you couldn't find it. And it was so expensive because it was out of print. So we're very excited to have that one back in stock.
Yeah.
And of course, Our Lady of Guadalupe's feast days during Advent. So it's a great book to have in your home during this time of year. One other thing I wanted to ask is, you know, this tradition of building a Christmas book collection. Is this anything that you did growing up with your children?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it was probably one of the more important things that I did. I'm a writer and a reader. So books are very, very important to me. And I do have a good collection of books, many of which are sadly out of print. You know, I mean, that's just the nature of publishing today.
Right.
But yeah, I'd always, you know, bring them out and put them in a basket near the tree and read through them and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, I think and because there's so many different dimensions and angles that writers and illustrators have taken with the Christmas story, and you know, focusing on different animals, or you know, the Magi or the shepherds or whatever, and from different cultures and from different perspectives. And so it's just such a wonderful way to get a global and very, you know, sort of traditionally rooted angle on Christmas and Advent in your family's home. Love it.
Right. Yeah. So for anyone who's listening or watching, we're talking about this idea of building a Christmas book collection. So the idea, like Amy just said, is that you have this special collection of books that you add to maybe every year. You buy 1 or 2 new titles. So it can, you know, you might start off. I remember when we first started our Christmas book tradition, I think I only had like 3 books. It was kind of lame. I was a little sad. I only had a baby. I was like, oh, but you know, quickly, if you every year just look around, and again, Bambinelli Sunday is my number 1 pick for this year. Look what's coming out and just add a book or 2 to your basket. And then, you know, now 15 years later, we have this huge green Tupperware, like heavy Tupperware full of books, and we bring it out on the first Sunday of Advent. And other than that, it stays packed up for the year. So we bring it out that first Sunday, and then it stays out. We put it in a basket, try to make it a little prettier. And we pack it up on the Feast of the Epiphany. So it's only that 5 or 6 weeks. And, you know, it's amazing. Even, you know, my older kids, my teenagers, they get excited just as excited as the little kids when the basket comes out and that box comes out. So,
Yeah.
really fun tradition. So Bambinelli Sunday and the Lady of Guadalupe, I'm going to recommend this
Yeah.
year to add to your Christmas book collection.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that you had mentioned, Amy, with Christmas traditions is the Jesse tree. And I'm just
Yeah.
wondering if you can share just a little bit about why you chose to do that in your family and
Um,
what it looked like.
I meant to dig out some of our old ornaments, but I forgot. I didn't have time to. But yeah, I love the Jesse tree. And again, it's a relatively recent tradition. I mean, the Jesse tree itself, of course, is rooted in scripture. And when you look at art, it's a very common theme in art and a fascinating theme in which usually Jesse is like lying on the ground sleeping, and there's an actual tree sprouting from him with all of his descendants and so on, of course, culminating in the Blessed Mother and Jesus. But the Jesse tree as a kind of a home or school tradition didn't get started, I think, until mid-century in the United States. And it is a tradition of making ornaments that are of the symbols that are expressive of Jesus's ancestry and kind of
Okay.
the Old Testament precursors of the coming of the Messiah. And then you can, do whatever you want with them. We usually put them on a door frame. I never did like a tree branch or anything like that. That's too much for me. I put them on a door frame. But the reason I like it is because, first of all, it's pretty easy. I mean, you can go to the internet and print out some pictures and have them cut them out and put them on construction paper, and that's it. Or you can go fancy. It doesn't matter. But the reason I like it, I'm always, in everything that I've written and done and taught in my decades of doing this, I'm always most interested in making sure that I or my reader or my student understands the deep roots of faith, that our Christian faith, our Catholic faith is not just something that has been made up today and that, authorities are enforcing on you so you'll be good. Our faith is rooted in the deepest questions that human beings have asked and the answers that God has given through revelation and tradition. And so everything that I write I always try to kind of point us back to that, even children, that this faith is, is rich and grounded. And the Jesse tree, I think, is a great way to do that, because what are you doing? You're bringing up and you're highlighting to them all of the ancestry of Jesus, the prophecies. You've got symbols of Noah and Moses and Adam and Eve and King David and the other prophets and so on. And it's again, to get back to the way we began, it's a visual way of making these truths memorable to them and involving them too. And, I think I'm very much not an artist, crafty person. So perfection has never been something that I cared about or worried about. I mean, I want it to look nice, but if it's theirs, they make it, they have ownership over it.
Right.
They're engaged with it. And it's a way of, subtly communicating that your faith is yours. And it's a way for them to be engaged, not just with the construction paper, but with their faith.
Right. So in your family, you actually make the ornaments. Is that
Yeah.
something you do every year, or would you reuse them from year to year? Or
Oh no, we'd reuse them. I mean, we did one good job, and that was
Okay,
it.
That was it. Yeah. So the Jesse tree is something kind of newer for our family too. We had never done it, and it is cool because it's kind of like an advent calendar too, because you hang one up every day. But then actually, for my 5-year-old, when she was born right before Christmas, and her godmother actually bought her a set of ornaments, Jesse tree ornaments on Etsy.
Oh, yeah.
And just like very simple but beautiful. And it's so cool to have that now. And it's something that, like, I think sometimes we don't know what to get people when they have a new baby, but sometimes getting them things that they can cherish as a Christmas tradition and bring out, whether it's a book or whether it's a set of Jesse tree ornaments, is a really cool thing to do, because it only comes out, that one time of year. And I know that my little girl goes, and every year she's like, oh my gosh, here's my Jessie tree ornaments from my godmother. And it's just really cool to see her to digging those out. So I think that's a beautiful tradition. We've really enjoyed doing it. And again, it's kind of an out of the box godparent gift that we've really appreciated in our family. So,
and there is so much out there too.
right.
I mean, craftspeople and artists
Right.
are producing so many beautiful things that can help us celebrate, that are child friendly too.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
it's always great to support our Catholic artists.
Yeah. So if you're not crafty, or you don't have time to do it, you can buy it. But like, there's a lot of, I've seen like printable things online. You can just print templates. So there's all sorts of ways to bring the Jessie tree to life in your family. And hopefully some people listening will give that a try this year. So we have so many great ideas, I think, in this interview. We have St. Nick's shoes. We have this adorable tradition of starting to make your own Bambinelli, which is brand new for my family this year. We have this Christmas book basket idea that many people are doing, and the Jessie tree. So these are all just, I think, awesome traditions to do. So thank you for sharing about that.
Sure.
And I did want to ask you, so now I want to kind of wade into something a little controversial, because I'm always curious to hear what other families do. But like, okay, so I'm going to go Team Santa, yay or nay. Now, I grew up doing Santa, as did my husband. So no one ever questioned it. It was just part of life. But now it's every Christmas that kind of comes up and people kind of bring up this topic. I'm just curious to know what your thoughts are on Santa.
Well, I mean, I think my gut was always nay. And I mean, I have a reason for it. I mean, not only was I uncomfortable thinking about the moment you have to say, yeah, no, I've been, there actually is no Santa. But I grew up, my mother was Catholic, my father was not. And my father came from a Southern Methodist family in which Christmas was all Santa. I mean, they were sort of church-going people, but Christmas was just Santa. And I remember my mother telling me that the first time she spent Christmas with them, I mean, we're talking, back like 1960, 61, she, as a Catholic, needed to go to Mass on Christmas and wanted to go to Mass. And they were like, why are you going to church?
Oh my gosh, you missed the point.
yeah. And so, I think that kind of like skewed my views on kind of against Santa in a way. But that said, I didn't raise my kids, saying no, without Santa. I let it happen. I let it drift. We never did pictures with Santa, never did that. But I just kind of let it happen, and and then the time came when maybe a couple of them didn't figure it out on their own, and we'd have the conversation, and it was not a big deal. So
I think you bring up a really good point, though. It kind of depends on what your own experience was with your family growing up. Like, because I know I grew up in a Catholic family and we did Santa, but he wasn't the star, it was about Jesus. So I would say I had a pretty good experience with Santa growing up. And as I had my own kids, of course, when the kids were young, I agonized over this, like Santa or no Santa, and now I realize maybe I was making just like a little bit too big of a deal out of it. So you kind of get perspective. But, I think there's so many ways that this is not like a church teaching. It's a gray area. People can discern this. But I think it does in our culture. Santa is so overemphasized. It's only Santa. And that can be a real turnoff when you're trying to raise a family in the faith and have that distraction. So it sounds like similarly in our family, we have like Santa's there, like you really can't hide from him. He's around, but it's a great story. Just like I tell my kids all sorts of other stories, and I don't say afterwards, now I just want to let you know the three little pigs, it's not actually true. It's the story we share. And then at some point, at some age, they've usually said like, is Santa real? And I'll be like, well, what do you think? And if they're really pressing, then I'll say, well, this is a story we've learned. It hasn't been like a big traumatic thing. I don't
Right.
know. Maybe it'll come up in therapy one day. So who knows?
Well,
To my
I
kids
have a funny
listeners.
story. One of my former students, back when I taught high school, one of my students, my class was talking about this, and one of my students said, "Yeah," she said, "I believed in Santa till I was like in fifth grade, and the reason was that her parents, like, they weren't like poor, but the parents like emphasized always, we're frugal, we don't have a lot of money, and all of that
Right.
kind of thing, and but then they would always get these really great Santa gifts, and she thought, well, there's no way my parents could afford this, so there must be a
There
Santa."
must be a Santa. How does this happen? That is
Right.
hilarious. That is so true. And kids, they ask all sorts these questions that just keep you on your toes all the time.
Right.
But Team Santa or not, there's so many traditions we can do. And I know a lot of people, it seems like, have really gravitated towards the idea of Saint Nicholas.
Hmm.
So that's another thing too. We kind of, in our family, it's worked well for us to say, like, yeah, we see Santa everywhere, but really Santa comes from Saint Nicholas, and
Right.
he's a real person, and
Yeah.
and focus on kind of the history of him. And so of course then when it comes to Mrs. Claus, it's a little harder to explain, but
And those elves, right.
no, I mean,
Well, and I think that, the deep answer is to focus on the spirit of Christmas, which is, the self-giftedness of God, which comes through very clearly in the St. Nicholas narrative, which I, maybe should have mentioned at the beginning, is that why do we put things in shoes, gold coins in shoes for St. Nicholas? Well, because one of the stories about St. Nicholas is that he rescued three young women who didn't have dowries, and he gifted their families with money so that they wouldn't have to have a terrible fate as a young woman who didn't have a dowry would have. And he sort of secretly dropped it in their house. And
right,
so,
right,
right. And so the point is that, God has given us the greatest gift in his son. And what do we take from that? More generosity, the virtue of charity. And that's what this is all about. And I also want to say before we, finish that, we're talking about all these traditions, and I am, not like a crafty person, and I, get, busy. We're all busy during this time
right.
of year.
So true.
Thanks to the schools, and that always want to have programs and recitals, of course, during this time of year. And my word of advice is don't stress. First of all, maybe do some cleansing, take some things out of your life, build some more peace into it, and then pick like two or three things that are manageable within your family life and involve the kids in it. Help them see it's their thing, and don't expect, quote, perfection. Just, it's the presence of Christ in your family, and the love and the creativity. That's what's important.
And that's a beautiful reminder, because it is a busy season, and it can be just a season of just like stress trying to get all the things done. And to kind of let go of that perfection and just pick those couple things. And that's really why of all the traditions, I really like the book basket the best, because literally if you don't have to do anything. You just put the books out. So like, we've had Christmases where like everyone's been sick, and that's one of the only traditions we've managed to do, is get those books out. And I'm so glad that we have those. And even like the St. Nicholas shoes, I know one year I forgot. I totally forgot.
Right. Oh
And
yeah,
so,
easy
and
to
of
do.
course my kids remembered, and they went to school and they were like, with St. Nick, everyone else, St. Nick came. And I was like, in our family, he's coming tonight. Tonight's the night. So, I was like, so it was so funny. So like, and they were fine,
Yeah.
so just putting out that effort and trying to have some beautiful, but like peaceful activities to do will go a long way. And if you miss something this year, you can always try it next year.
Right.
So thank you so much, Amy. I love hearing about this. I loved hearing about the story of how the book Bambinelli Sunday came to be, and about what's done at your parish in Birmingham. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm just wondering if there's anything before we go that you would have maybe like done differently, looking back. I mean, you're a grandma now, like, but with Christmas, like, or was there, or one lesson you took away? I know you just shared about kind of trying to keep peace and move things out. Anything else you want to say at the end here about
Well,
that?
I think that, I mean, to get a little bit serious about it, Christmas can be a sad time for people. It can be a sad time as we maybe remember difficult times in our own past, as we reflect on the difficulties in our present families, as we miss people who aren't there, as we worry about the people who aren't there. And so I, grew up in a family where those kinds of, I want to say, negative vibes, my family of origin, were prominent. And so I made it kind of a mission to not let difficult experiences from my past define my present celebration of the holidays with my kids and my family, in two ways. Both, I wasn't going to be obsessed with kind of making it better in the present, right? And I wasn't going to just let it define us. And so, every day, every season is a time to start over. And, and to remember that, Christ is ever new, and Christ, wants to be present, is present, and wants to be present and kind of bring more love into your family. And so I guess my lesson from my own experience has been that I think I was successful in kind of not letting any past difficulties define our present celebrations. But I think the thing that I feel missing, and as I said, my oldest is 42, so I have a long, I have decades of like mistakes to think back on. As I do wish that maybe I had been a little more cognizant and maybe had brought more sense of generosity towards those outside the family. I mean, when the kids are young, it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that. But when my kids got older, it finally started hitting me that, if I want to teach them that this is not all about what you're going to get, we need to maybe be more intentional about giving, and not just giving to relatives, but giving to the community. So we, before COVID shut this down, we had started spending both Thanksgiving and Christmas morning helping serve food at a local soup kitchen or shelter, really. And there are other things that you can do that are, less. I'll maybe leave you with this suggestion that I thought was lovely, that I wish I'd thought of myself years ago, which is, as you prepare gifts to give to others, to say a prayer for the people that you're giving this gift to or sending a card to as a family, to pray that this gift might be a sign of love that will enrich their lives and all that kind of thing, to really connect us as in this season in a very intentional way to the gift of love that we've been given, and that our gifts are a sign of sharing that love.
Well, that's beautiful. And I'm sure that what you just shared will resonate with many people who are, they want something better for their families, maybe, or something different. And they're trying to be intentional about what they do. And, like you said, when kids are little, it's harder to do. And you might do these, like the Advent wreath and the Bambinelli, and that's all wonderful. And it's so important to do those traditions. But as your family grows up, that maybe those traditions can shift to include something. I love this saying, to go and do service on Thanksgiving or Christmas, or to buy gifts for those in need, or pray for people. So thank you so much. That's a beautiful closing thought. And we're just so grateful. Thank you so much, Amy, for coming on today. We really enjoyed hearing from you. I enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah.
And I want to remind everybody that all the books that we spoke about today, including the beautiful Bambinelli Sunday by Amy Welborn, illustrated by Ann Engelhart, is available at ignatius.com. So thank you so much, Amy.
Well, thank you, Rose. Thank you,
have
Ignatius.
A wonderful Advent.
You too. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.